Howdy folks, Little John. End of another week of working at home during isolation. It's time for a brew, and I might as well get into doing a proper tasting on the wet hop Fuggles Harvest Ale. I did a bit of a tasting on this on a live stream. Oh, it would have been last weekend, last Sunday. Had a sneaky one. I tried it off the keg. And I thought I'd actually do one out of a bottle for the full tasting, and I'll explain when I get to the tasting exactly why that was. But before I do, just want to touch on just something just minor. Occasionally I've discovered over the years you get some bonuses from people, and not always because you're meant to. Sometimes they're accidental bonuses. Big one that really comes to mind is quite a few years ago there was a fella who started out a new brew shop, and he really shook things up. He went really hard on his prices, undercut a lot of people. In the end, he ended up failing for reasons outside of the prices. But I made an order off him at one stage, and when it turned up, with a mix of bits and pieces, and when it turned up, there was a 1 kilo bag of Cascade hops sitting on top of my stuff, like it had been put there on purpose as something additional to the rest of the pack. Now I certainly didn't order a kilo of Cascade hops. Everything else I ordered was in the pack. That was a bonus. I managed to swap that around with quite a few brewers around the place, and got quite a lot of different hops out of it. Another one's just popped up just 15-20 minutes ago. I ordered some beer from what's called the Beer Drop. I think these guys are out of the Central Coast. And it popped up a week or so ago in the Facebook feed, because they were giving away bottles of Russian River Pliny the Elder. It was like, okay, first 12 people who buy this mixed dozen, they'd randomly draw one person out and you'd win a bottle of the Pliny. Too good a chance for me to knock back, so I jumped on. Didn't win the Pliny. Yeah, shit happens. The beers turned up yesterday, and I've just got to actually unpacking them today and put them in the fridge. And so I unpacked the box, and there's a little green card here, and there's a sticker, and there's even a tiny little bit of hop here with a card explaining what the hops are. And I suppose if you're just a normal craft beer drinker and you don't actually brew yourself, then that's an interesting little bit of gear. Tells you how to rub them together and get a bit of a smell. Tells you a bit about them. But anyway, I've unpacked the box, and as I'm going, I'm thinking, hang on. I stacked them up, and there was 14 beers in the box, not 12. And I thought, oh, okay, well maybe that's just what they've done. They've thrown in some extras. They're all single cans, except there was 2 of the one thing, which was quite a big beer. It's actually an Imperial Stout, and there was 2 of them. And I thought that was a bit strange too, because when I first started taking, I'd only taken a couple of cans out, and I thought, okay, maybe there's 2 of everything. But as I'm going, no, definitely wasn't 2. It was only 2 of this one particular can. A 10% Russian Imperial Stout. It's not going to be a cheap can, one wouldn't think. I thought, oh well, I'm not questioning why that's happened. I don't know. So I put them away. I've got myself cleaned up here. I've bloody a bit of muck around. I've cleaned around, get ready so I can sit down and do this tasting. And as I did, I'd grab this card out and have a look at it, assuming it was going to be some tasting notes or some information on the beers that are in the box. But when I open it, it's actually a handwritten card. Now I don't know if you said it, but basically says it's to someone called Simon, basically saying thanks for being a good customer. So I'm thinking, well, I'm not Simon, never have been, never will be. So I'm thinking, Simon, who's obviously sorry, that's the work course doesn't stop even though you're technically finished. Anyway, so yeah, so I think Simon's obviously a regular customer, and they thought, oh look, we'll give him a little bit of a. I think they've decided to give him a little bit of a bonus for being a good customer, which is what the card's about, and why there's 2 extra beers in the pack. So unfortunately, Simon's dipped out, and I've benefited. These things happen. It's nice when it happens. I think I'll have to shoot them a message and just let them know that Simon didn't get his bonus beers. But oh well. They're in my fridge now, so they can sort Simon out. Anyway, so let's get back to this bloody tasting. So as I said, this is my second taste. That didn't have a lot of fizz in it then. I'll put a link up to brew day, and this is the brew I did was it's basically an English bitter done with all wet hops from Todd Letchford, one of the Patreons. He picked them and bought them, yeah, actually delivered them to me. We did a dodgy little roadside exchange of some goods. And I brewed up the wet hop ale. I used about 500 grams of his fresh Fuggles in that brew. Now, I kegged most of it and bottled about half a dozen bottles. But when I kegged it, and this is what's come up from the tasting the other day. When I kegged it, I couldn't get onto a tap. I didn't have a tap free, so I've just purged the keg of oxygen with CO2, and I've left it sitting there. And it had now sat there for about 3 weeks before it actually got onto a tap and onto gas. Now I didn't even cross my mind that that wasn't going to be a good idea, and it should have. So tasting it the other day, it wasn't bad, but it did have a sort of a sour edge to it, and I'm just concerned that sour edge has come from the keg sitting for those 3 weeks without any carbonation. So I did comment when I was doing that tasting the other day that I was going to wait to do a proper tasting for the channel, and I'd do it out of a bottle, so I wasn't having that no carbonation effect, to see whether that was what was causing the sour edge, or whether that was just purely coming from the hops themselves. So that's why I'm going to go on the bottle. See how we got to where we are today. So I'll give them a while. Now the brew out of the keg was drinking quite nice, apart from this sour edge. It did have it was quite a nice brew. So yeah, that's her there. She's quite dark in colour. It's very deep amber. Looks a bit brown. There's a bit of dark behind it. Get a bit of light behind it. There is some amber edges there. And it smells like a typical amber type of brew. As I said, I didn't brew wasn't a particular style. Was sort of ranging between the upper end of an English pale ale into a special bitter, that sort of range. I wasn't particularly aiming for anything. It's just that core. So quickly grab the actual recipe. So the recipe was 97% Marathotta, 2% medium crystal, and 1% pale chocolate. So it's just enough to give it a little bit of colour and just a little bit of flavour. And as I said, the nose is quite amber ale. There's some fairly distinct malt there, considering it's only 3% of those specialties. Okay, it's bold. It's got big body, a lot of malt. Now, there is that sour edge. It's definitely less than what I was getting the other day off the keg, but it's still there a little bit. There's an awful lot of earth and there's some dank, which isn't something I sort of would normally expect to get from Fuggles, but it does tie in that dirty, earthy, musty sort of an effect. So it's not completely out of character. But yeah, there is some sour edge there. Now there was a good whack of magnesium. Put some Epsom salts into the mix, and probably a little more than I normally would. So I did push that a little bit. So that could be contributing a tiny little bit. But overall, it's not too bad. 5.6% alcohol in the bottle. Bitterness I'd calculated around 30 IBU, and again that's hard with using homegrown hops, so that's just going off the standard. As I said, it was about 500 grams of hops. It was 160 grams at 60 minutes, 180 grams at 60, 180 grams at 15, and then was about 150 at 5 minutes. There was nothing beyond the boil. Here we go again. Yeah, so I said, well, the big one. But what did happen was, when I got the hops initially, I had planned on doing the brew like 2 days later. We had a few dramas and I didn't actually get to do that. And in the end, it was probably like 9 days later before I got to actually put the brew down. So the wet hops they sat in the fridge, but it's not the best environment for them. So I don't know what sort of effect that has had overall. Now I'm just going to grab just a small shot of this off the keg. Okay, that's interesting. It's actually a couple of shades lighter off the keg than out of the bottle. Not a lot, but smelling much the same. Okay, there is definitely a slightly more sour edge on the keg. Not much, but it's also not as malty as out of the bottle. And the bottle does have bit of gas, so that could have something to do with that. It's not, oh, it's pretty close, but they're both drinking all right. So I think that 9 day of the hop sitting has affected it in a negative sort of a way, has contributed a little bit of that sour edge to the hop. Like it's creeping in, like it's sort of probably creeping from that vegetative sort of side. And then I think, yeah, not carving that keg initially. Obviously, normally I was going to sit a keg around. I'll put, you know, 30 grams of bloody dextrose in it just to put some gas into the keg to avoid that problem. And I think that's had a slight effect. I don't think it's oxidised in any way. I think it's just soured up that little bit from sitting. So both brews, they're holding a nice little, it's actually a very creamy sort of head. Listen, the body's fairly heavy, but yeah, it's definitely got a sour note there that I wasn't expecting. And to a degree, if you didn't tell someone exactly what it was, you might even sort of start pushing on the range that, you know, someone's actually tried to sour this beer. But that's obviously, you know, it isn't what would happened. There is potential that there is something, I said again, from that 9 days of the hop sitting that has created some sort of bacteria which is contributing that sour edge. That's very, very possible. Yeah, it could be some kind of wild yeast that is living on the hops. So that's certainly not to be discounted. But it is what it is. Not as successful as one would have hoped, but long way of being a failure. So it's drinkable. It's different. I mean, for me, sitting here with a variety of beers available to drink, it's going to work. It can go in the rotation. I'm not going to drink it all the time. I probably wouldn't want to be drinking this beer after beer, you know, as my main beer, and have to drink 2 cartons of it. I think it would be too much. But as a individual beer on its own, and sit down every, you know, maybe once a week and, you know, pour one of those and drink it, more than acceptable. So, as I said, Todd, cheers, mate. All the Patreons, as always, yeah, thanks for the support. Whether it's hops, yeah, other bits and pieces, yeah, it's always nice to get that extra from you guys at home. If you're sitting there watching, you're not subscribing to Little John, hit the button down there in the corner. Come along for the ride, join us in what we do. We experiment, we try things, we look at how things work. If you got any comments or any questions, you know, if you use your own hops, you've had success or failures, or, yeah, any tips that you can pass on to anybody who's watching, stick it down the bottom. Go for your life. Any questions, stick them down the bottom. I'll get back to you, yeah, as quick as I can. But other than that, for today, that's me, Little John. Toddy Letchford's homegrown wet hop Fuggle Harvest Ale. But until I see you again, talking beer, we're brewing beer, we're drinking beer, good brewing.